No, I don't foresee it, but it's more or less like a ruthless type of feeling. Very ruthless.
For years, Bob Dylan and Al Kooper were spoken about in the same breath. Icons of the 1960s music revolution, their names were etched into rock history through unforgettable collaborations, like a Rolling Stone. But behind the stage lights, the harmonicas, and the Hammond organ, something much darker was brewing. Today, after years of silence, Bob Dylan has finally opened up, and what he revealed about Al Kooper has sent shockwaves through the music world. The revelation was anything but subtle. According to Dylan, the myth of Kooper as a beloved studio wizard and musical genius only told part of the story. Behind closed doors, Kooper had long been a source of division, resentment, and conflict. And now, the skeletons are finally tumbling out of the closet. Think of that legendary day in June 1965, the recording session for Like a Rolling Stone at Columbia Records in New York City. Kooper, not even supposed to be there in any official capacity, famously sneaked into the session and bluffed his way onto the Hammond organ. The result? A historic sound. But while the public heard brilliance, the musicians in the room felt something else entirely: irritation. Dylan may have appreciated the moment, but others didn't. Guitarist Mike Bloomfield, known for his blistering blues licks, reportedly found Kooper to be an irritating presence. He didn't belong there, Bloomfield once confided to close associate, and that sentiment would follow Kooper for much of his career. His habit of inserting himself into projects, sometimes welcomed, often not, became a recurring point of contention. While Al Kooper's musical instincts were sharp, his personality often clashed with the very artists he collaborated with. He was seen as brash, overly ambitious, and at times manipulative. As Dylan has now confirmed, many in the scene viewed Kooper not as a peer, but as a necessary evil, someone whose musical skills outweighed his personal flaws, but only just.
Oh, sure. I'm just kind of sad I'm not around to be a part of it, but
it would have been pretty wild if you had done it.
Yeah.
Take the brief, fiery tenure Kooper had with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, a band he helped form. Creative differences quickly escalated into full-blown arguments. Kooper envisioned a rock band with horn. The rest of the group saw something else. Within months he was out, pushed or jumped, depending on who you believe. Either way, his departure was marked by bitterness and silence that lasted years. Kooper's problems didn't stop with his bandmates. In studio sessions with big names like Leonard Skinner, tensions often ran high. He produced their first 3 albums, but insiders say his perfectionism and controlling nature led to frequent flare-ups. Ronnie Van Sant reportedly grew tired of Kooper's Yankee arrogance, a sentiment that boiled over more than once during recording sessions. One engineer remembered a near-physical confrontation after Van Sant accused Kooper of burying the soul of the band under polished production. They finished the album, but not the grudge. There were also problems with session musicians, some of whom refused to return after just one experience with Kooper. One bassist recalled Kooper demanding over 50 takes of the same riff, refusing to compromise, while smoking nonstop and muttering sarcastic insults between tracks. Others said Kooper micromanaged so obsessively that sessions felt less like collaboration and more like dictatorship. And it wasn't just the artists. Engineers and producers who worked with Kooper described a man who didn't take criticism well and had a tendency to talk over others. He wanted things his way, or not at all. He'd override decisions, erase mixes without warning, and ignore schedules entirely, causing delays and budget overruns. The result? Kooper was often brilliant, and just as often, alone. Some say the only reason he kept being hired was because the end product was too good to ignore, even if the path to get there was lined with bruised egos and shattered tempers. One of the most striking aspects of Kooper's life was his knack for burning bridges. His feud with Steve Katz from Blood, Sweat, and Tears turned into a long-lasting grudge, with Katz once describing Kooper as impossible to work with in private circles. The animosity between them stretched far beyond studio disagreements. Katz reportedly refused to attend industry events if Kooper was on the guest list, and they would go decades without speaking a word to one another. Mutual acquaintances were forced to pick sides, further splintering the musical circle they once shared. Even outside the realm of rock, Kooper had clashed with jazz musicians who felt he disrespected the genre with his crossover experiments. One incident at a 1976 Jazz Fusion Festival in Chicago reportedly ended with Kooper storming off stage mid-set, after being publicly criticized by a respected saxophonist for polluting jazz with gimmicks. That outburst turned into a backstage altercation that left Kooper fuming and blacklisted from future festivals. In the 1970s, a short-lived collaboration with Steven Stills ended after just a few weeks, when creative disagreements exploded into shouting matches in the studio. Kooper, used to being in control, didn't know how to compromise. Stills allegedly threw a chair across the room during one heated exchange, accusing Kooper of sabotaging the music with ego-driven decisions. The project collapsed almost overnight, and both men refused to speak about it publicly for years. Behind the scenes, many musicians spoke of Kooper with a mix of awe and caution. His talent was never questioned, but his attitude left scorched earth in its wake. Whether it was producers he undermined, bandmates he belittled, or managers he ignored, Kooper left a trail of broken partnerships. Friends say he took each fallout personally, internalizing the rejection, then lashing out in private. He withdrew for months at a time, nursing old grudges and replaying every confrontation like a record stuck on repeat. Behind the musical chaos was a personal life, filled with equal unrest. Kooper's marriage fell apart in the early 1980s following years of strain, long studio hours, and a lifestyle that kept him away from home. While he was chasing sounds in the studio, his wife was left raising their son largely alone, feeling abandoned. Rumors of infidelity on both sides surfaced in tabloid whispers, adding fuel to an already raging fire. The divorce was messy, with shouting matches spilling out of the courtroom and into headlines, and custody disagreements over their son dragged through the courts for years, leaving emotional scars that never fully healed. Family members have hinted at emotional distance, describing him as a man who was more comfortable with instruments than intimacy. Holidays were missed, birthdays forgotten. His obsession with music consumed him, leaving little room for family. His brother once remarked that Al lived in his head, often pushing away those who tried to get too close. And when loved ones finally gave up trying, Kooper was too proud to chase after them. Friends came and went. Many felt used, like they were only needed when Kooper wanted something. There were stories of sudden fallouts over minor disagreements, friendships shattered by jealousy, ego, or simple indifference. Some described him as emotionally unavailable, others as quietly tormented by his own inability to connect. Betrayals, paranoia, and the constant pursuit of the next musical high left him increasingly isolated, living in the shadows of his own success, unable to maintain the relationships that mattered most. As he aged, Kooper faced serious health issues. A near-fatal bout of kidney failure in the 1990s forced him into a long hospital stay. Doctors weren't sure he'd make it through the night. The silence of the hospital room, the machines beeping steadily, became a far cry from the noise and chaos of the recording studios he once dominated. And while his body slowly began to heal, something in him fractured permanently. The ordeal left him physically weakened, but emotionally devastated. When he emerged, the world had moved on without him. New generations of artists dominated the charts, and Kooper, once a revolutionary figure, felt like a relic. The phone stopped ringing. Former collaborators didn't visit. Invitations stopped arriving. He felt forgotten by the music industry, abandoned by peers, and misunderstood by fans who now only remembered him as a distant figure from a different era. To cope, he retreated from public life, turning down interviews, refusing documentaries, and avoiding reunions. Friends say he became paranoid, convinced people were rewriting history without him. Even when honored for his contributions, he rarely appeared in person, often citing health reasons, though insiders say it was pride and pain that kept him away. He preferred to remain in the shadows, letting the myths circulate while he silently wrestled with his own legacy, one built on triumphs, but haunted by loneliness and regret. Despite all the drama, Kooper's mark on rock history is undeniable. His ear for talent, his instinct for arrangement, and his willingness to take bold musical risks helped shape generations. He discovered sounds before others could hear them, and he brought unlikely artists together to create magic. But those same talents were paired with a sharp tongue, a fragile ego, and an inability to forgive or forget. And as Dylan's recent comments confirm, the legacy he leaves behind is complicated. Kooper was both a genius and a provocateur, a man who changed music but couldn't change himself. He was a visionary who built walls instead of bridges. Loved for his art, loathed for his arrogance, admired yet alienating, he lived a life full of contradictions. Even at the height of his career, he seemed at war with the very people who helped him rise. Behind every success was a personal cost, a collaborator lost, a friendship burned, a bond broken. And now that the silence has been broken, the world is finally seeing the full picture, and it's far messier than anyone imagined. It's a story not just of brilliance, but of missed opportunities, emotional wreckage, and a man who was often his own worst enemy. The genius of Al Kooper lit up a generation, but the shadows he cast were just as long.